Hello everybody, this is Tracy from Tracy's Paper Pastimes. Welcome to my channel and thank you so much for joining me today. So what I have for you today is a tutorial on how I make my paper beads. And along with paper buttons, paper beads are something that I use in just about all of my junk journal projects. And they are simple to make, and you can use up book pages and magazine pages, your scraps. You can use up so many different little bits and bobs and create different beads. And so that's what I'm going to show you how I make mine today. And this is just one of my many containers that I have full of my paper beads. And I've used various different things, like I have some book pages here that I've used. These guys are from a calendar. These are from magazines. These are kind of one of the things that I sit in front of the TV and just kind of roll my paper beads. And then I seal them up with, a lot of times I just use nail polish, but I'll get to that at kind of the end of the video here, to when I'm finishing up my beads. But so paper beads are one of my favorites. And so I'll show you a couple things that I use my paper beads for. So these, just on the tag, I added them to the fringe to add that finishing touch there. And here, paper beads, this one was from one of the challenges. So the paper beads there that I used. Now I've also used, I really like using beads on the spines of a lot of my junk journals. And this one is one of those never-ending journals. But when I was sewing in the signatures, I didn't want just the string hanging out and showing on the back side here. So I decided to just use paper beads for that, to kind of disguise the string. And then the journal that I'm creating for my design team challenge here, or design team project, it's I made corresponding paper beads. So this is part of the Sunflower Reverie pages that I created the beads with, because I wanted it to correspond and everything go together. So paper beads on spines are one of my favorites, and a lot of my projects I do that. But creating the beads themselves are really simple. So I'll show you some different materials as to what you can use for paper beads, and magazine pages are great. And I'll kind of show you, as I flip through this one, what are some good magazine pages and what are not. Okay, so these ones aren't really good. There's not a lot of color. What I'm looking for is the full pages. Okay, so this one here would be a great magazine page to use for paper beads. Okay, so a lot of times I get magazines, old magazines, and I'll just flip through them and pull out all of the pages that I think would make great paper beads, and then I kind of cut them. These are another mass produce for me. Okay, so magazines are a place you can find paper things for paper beads. Another one are picture books. I go to a lot of thrift stores, and this book is an amazing book for paper beads. So what I'm wanting is a page with a full picture. So all of these, like even this one, I would just cut that off and use that. This is a great book for paper beads. Okay, so that's another place that you can get your materials from. The other one that I use a lot are calendars, because they do have the full pictures. So all of these would be great for your paper beads. Okay, so those are a few of the resources that I use for my paper beads. I also use book pages a lot. It just depends on what I'm wanting. So today I'm just going to kind of use up some scraps that I have. And these are just cut-offs from a project I was working on. So basically how you kind of start is on the back here. I've just marked these at 1/2 inch intervals. So I want 1/2 inch strips for these beads. And then I'm just going to cut them, okay, into the strips. Okay, so I just cut down and end up with as many strips. Okay, so a bunch of different strips. And then from here, you could roll this as is, and this will give you a different shape. This is more like a barrel type bead that it'll create. Or you could cut it just kind of at an angle to make triangles. And the triangle is my favorite shape. It is definitely, oops, not the only shape, but it's kind of my go-to. And so most of the beads that you'll see on my projects are the triangle pieces. And I'm not too fussy or particular with my cutting. So like this one is at 1 inch. These ones are half that. So it, depending on how big you want your beads, I've done the 2 inches, I've done like the different lengths. Okay, so that one I think is at 2 inches. This one's at 1 inch. This guy's at 1/2 inch. So it just depends on how wide you want your bead and that this width is what's going to determine that. Okay. And then you're going to need something to roll your bead on. And there are people that just use toothpicks. I cannot get that to work. So toothpicks is an option, but I just created a little tool with a bamboo skewer. And what I did was I just kind of, I sliced it to be able to slide my paper into it. Okay, so you just kind of, you want to slide the end of the paper and then pinch it, and then you just start rolling. And then just try and keep the everything kind of centered. And as you go through, once you get to the end, then I just take my glue, put glue on the end here, and continue rolling it. Hold it for a little bit for that glue to catch, and then you just slide it off. And it's as easy as that. This one, it's going to make a wider bead. So I just slide it in, kind of pinch, start rolling. Now these ones are cut-offs from like a heavier paper, so they are a little bit more difficult to get started. But once you get started, you just roll them. Once you get to the end, you glue it. And then keep rolling, hold it for a bit, and slide it off. And that's your paper beads. So that's kind of using scraps and cutoffs. Now, the other thing that I want to show you is how I kind of mark my pages for doing the magazines. Okay, so I've already marked these off at 1 inch on the top and the bottom here. So I'm just going to cut a couple strips. Okay. So I'm just going to cut it. Okay. Now for the longer pieces, I probably would use my my ruler and knife. The problem is at the tips it gets really thin, so it's difficult to cut all the way through there. A lot of times it just bunches, so I would just finish it off with that. Okay, now I'm going to make a bead out of this part. Okay, and then when you're rolling the bead as well, play around with it and see what works for you. Some people like rolling towards. I prefer rolling away. It's just preference. It makes no difference. But as the important part is just to kind of keep the paper centered. And as you're rolling, everything, just make sure it's centered and just keep rolling it. Oops. Okay, now when you get to the end, you're just going to glue the end. Okay, and then you just slide it off. Now with the magazines, they are more slippery. So when you're pulling your bead off, it might shrink up, like you might pull it and then the center pulls out, but you can always just adjust it and fiddle with it to get it back to the shape that you want. I do want to show you just a straight strip to show you what this one would look like. So you can play around with the different the different shapes of the paper, but this one would be more just a barrel. So as you're wrapping this one, it doesn't give the color variation that the other shape does, and I think that's why I like the other one more. And then so this one, and then you just glue the end. Okay, and then slide that one off. Now the one thing to keep in mind, be careful your tension when you're rolling it, because if you start off too tight, it can be difficult to remove it off the skewer. And then, so that's just a different shape. And with this one, you can, if you've ever printed things, like sometimes I print something, and for my particular printer and computer, I have to have it open and the program still running. I can't just shut my computer and have it print in the background. And I've done that sometimes, and it only prints like a strip initially. And the way I use those is I just make these barrel beads, because you only need like a couple inches at one end, because that's all you're going to see. Whereas this shape, it gives you more of the variation, and I think that's why I like this one better. There's just more color in it. Okay, now once I've made a bunch of my beads, then I seal them off. So I've got some of these guys drying already. So these are ones that I'm making for my project. These are a couple ones. These are some of the ones we just made. So to seal them, a lot of times I just use nail polish. I just go to the dollar store and get some nail polish, and I like the glitter. Okay, so the glitter nail polish, as you can see, I don't have a whole lot left here, but I just put the beads on toothpicks, and then I seal it with the glitter nail polish, and then I would just put that all the way around, and then I just have a styrofoam thing that I just poke them in and just let them dry. Or I just have a top coat, like just a clear top coat nail polish, same thing. I would just paint the bead with that, okay, and then let it dry. So that's kind of my go-to. When I first started making the beads, I did use this triple thick glaze. Nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's fiddly because you have to use a paintbrush and paint it on. This, it's just easy. I'm all about easy. But you can definitely use what you have. And so I do use this triple thick glaze. Sometimes I use this on my paper buttons if I want a kind of a glossy look to them as opposed to the matte look. I will use this glaze, but for the most part, for sealing off my beads, I just use nail polish, either the clear glitter, and then I have some silver glitter somewhere. It just depends. And so that's how I seal them off. And then I keep them, sometimes I've seen people who are much more organized than I am, that they actually have their beads all color coordinated. And you definitely could. I'm just not that organized. I'll just pick through it. So I'll show you kind of the differences. I'm sure you might be able to see this already. But this one I used the nail polish. I think this one was a silver nail polish, the silver glitter. And then these ones, I just used the clear. Okay, so it's just different looks, and depending on what you want for your finished product. And that's as simple as it is. You don't have to, it looks, again, a lot more complicated than it is. Now, the other thing I want to mention as far as tools go, you can buy the rollers off of Etsy. I have tried to find them on Amazon, and the ones that they have are for the paper quilling. And so the end is only like a kind of a 1/2 inch slit in it, so you can't make the bigger beads with them. I haven't found an actual bead roller on Amazon that has the longer end. But what I also did, because I do make a lot of paper beads, I just made my own tool. So this here is a cotter pin, and I just use polymer clay to make the handle. So it's the same type of thing. You just slide your paper in there and then roll it. Okay, so this one, I like it because it's a chunkier handle. It's just easier to roll and kind of keep track of what you're doing. But there's lots of different options. You definitely don't need the specialty tools. You can just use skewers. You can try using just rolling paper over top of a toothpick. I'm just not good at that one, so but it's that simple. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Hopefully you will give it a try, making some paper beads and using them in different projects. Thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting.